Greetings to everybody in the CIS community. I'm absolutely delighted to bring to you another installment of CIS Roundtable, a fascinating conversation amongst CIS students, alumni, parents, and staff members on a topic of special interest to us all. And this month, we will be looking at the particularly fascinating, compelling, interesting, important subject of university counseling. So welcome. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I graduated in the class of 2016, and I've been a part of the CIS community since I joined in reception.
I'm Bob Mansueto. I'm Director of University Counseling, and this is my 25th year here.
My name is Jasmine Sheng. I'm a mother of three. One has already graduated from class of 2023. One is in year 13 and the other is in year 10.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm from year 13. I'm the current head girl and I joined in reception.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm in year 13 also, and I'm the head boy. And for the context of the discussion, I applied mainly to the U.S.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Lee. I'm the Deputy Director of University Counseling here at CIS, and it's my first year here.
For the sake of our conversation, just imagine that our listeners don't know anything whatsoever about university counseling. What would you say about it, Mr. Mansueto?
We consider this really a 4-year, very specific program. In year 10 and 11, we focus on what we call individual and career advancement. And that's really designed to help students get to know themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses. We expose them to different career opportunities so that when they enter the college process, when they're really doing the search and ultimately application process, they have an idea of what they might be looking for. And we consider not knowing what you want an equally valid direction. Then when we get to year 12 and 13, the university counseling part and the specific university part kicks in. And at that time, we meet individually. All of our students are assigned individual counselors. Right around this time, right around Chinese New Year in year 12, they meet individually with counselors. We hold group sessions. We get to know them and their aspirations. We get to know their families. And then we work with them in the research process, and then in year 13, particularly the fall, we help them to actually apply. First, identify schools they're interested in, and then we help them put together their applications.
What happens if I decide not to go to college immediately after CIS and I'm out there in the world and I want to come back to our program? Would I still be able to do that?
Absolutely. We have students that will do a gap year, a planned gap year, take a year off. In the case of military service, for example, in Singapore, they have to take 2 years off. But we continue to work with them throughout the process, assist them in the application process, write letters of support for them. And there are cases where students will go to college or a university and decide it maybe wasn't the right situation for them. And then we will work with students, whether they're transferring in their after their freshman year, during their sophomore year, or even in their up to the end of their sophomore year.
Who are those people involved in the process, and what are the different roles and responsibilities of each person?
Sure. So we have a team of very experienced university counselors, including Mr. Mansueto and myself, and we also have 3 additional university counselors, and we guide them effectively through this journey of self-exploration, self-awareness, and they'll be working very closely with their UC effectively from year 12 all the way through year 13. We work together as a family unit here, so students are always welcome, parents are always welcome, and we also, this year, we are working more collaboratively with the social emotional counselors to bring in that element to make sure that students' mental health is supported. We worked closely with head of years so that at each level from year 10, 11, 12, 13 onward, that students are known and valued and supported well through this process.
Where are students from CIS typically going for their higher education journeys?
Look historically from CIS's first graduating class. About 40% of our students have gone to the US, about a third to the UK, then about 10% stay here in Hong Kong. Then we have a smattering going to the rest of the world. So about 10% or so, whatever that leaves. We have students going to Australia. We have students going to Canada for sure. We have students definitely staying in Hong Kong. As I mentioned, about 10% of our students generally will stay to pursue higher education in Hong Kong. And then we have students going far and wide. We've had students go to Japan. We've had students go to European countries. So what we do is, for the countries that we know a lot of our students will be interested in, we hold specific workshops for students and evening sessions for parents on those countries. Anywhere else that a student is interested in applying, we work very individually with them. So we might not have a session. We've seen an uptick, for example, in the number of students looking at mainland China. And we work with them individually. They have different processes depending upon the university there. So we feel as though we cover all bases in terms of countries that students might want to go to.
Have you noticed any other trends in the kinds of places that students wish to go over the last several years?
I would say over the last maybe 8 or 9 years, maybe 7, we've seen an increase in the percentage of students going to the US. So that students that percentage that has historically been around 40% in recent years has gotten as high as 58%.
What do you feel, having now completed this whole process, should be the goals of a student involved in university counseling?
I think the primary goal, as I think Ms. Lee alluded to earlier, is self-discovery in terms of testing what it is you love and trying to discern what truly interests you to go abroad or stay in Hong Kong and study it for 3 to 4 years. I mean, that's a huge commitment. And I know people who have gone from, medicine to maths, medicine to English, for me, for instance. And it's in writing those personal statements and having those conversations with your university counselor, with your teachers, with your parents as well, that really allows you to understand who you are and have some kind of vision for what you want to do.
In addition to self-discovery, I think having a balanced list of schools where you'd be genuinely happy is really important, because it's super easy to get swept up in university rankings and word of mouth. And if you look at like the top 10 schools in a certain country, they're all so different. So it might be ranked very highly, but you might not be happy there. So having a list of schools where you can pursue what you're genuinely passionate about and where you think you would fit in, where you would grow, not just in terms of your academics, but also as an individual. So constructing that list where you will be happy no matter where you are. I'd also say another thing is just walking away with no regret, because it is a very random process and it is very competitive. But if you know that you gave it your all, you tried your absolute best, then you're not going to come away with it feeling like, I could have maybe done more. So just giving it your all, even though it can be challenging with everything going on.
What about challenges?
It is very difficult. I'd say, one obvious one is just the incredible balancing act which you have to go through, because, on top of writing applications, you need to be doing very well with your academics, you need to be involved in extracurriculars, and you also want to maintain your well-being, a good personal life, maintain connections with friends. So it's a very difficult balancing act, and it spreads you very thin. If you follow the path which genuinely interests you, so you're not approaching it through like an achievement-driven mindset, but through a more purpose-driven mindset where you're doing what really interests you, and you take it day by day, I think it's completely doable.
I think the college process is challenging in the sense that you have to distinguish your own expectations for yourself from the expectations that others hold for you. And that can be very challenging at times, and yet when you can get through it, very meaningful.
Ultimately, what are the great benefits of the process that you would hope to receive from it?
Knowing yourself and also having that kind of self-assurance that the college process gives you. I think a lot of it demands that you present yourself and be able to showcase what you're capable of. So those are skills that will tide us through, applying for jobs, future interviews that we'll have to do. It's like a preparation for the future, very much so.
Through the college process, it forces you to reflect on what's shaped you, why you're involved in what you're involved in, and I think you come out of it as a much more, purpose-driven person. You really, you understand the deeper meaning regarding all the different activities you're involved in. So that would be, I think, a positive reward if you go through it well and thoroughly.
When looking back on the whole experience, what were some of the highlights for you?
The one word I would use to describe the whole process is overwhelming. Overwhelming in the sense that it's overwhelmingly exciting, but also more often than not, also overwhelmingly stressful. But of course, if we're talking about highlights, definitely I agree. I still come back and visit the UC team. Like, I've graduated for 8 years. I've met Mr. Maria, who was my counselor, for lunch several times after coming back from college from the US. Maintaining these relationships, and of course even teachers who wrote my recommendations, staying in touch, I think, because obviously these are the people who have shaped you while you've been at CIS. So being able to share kind of after CIS what you've been doing and how they've shaped you and guided you to, things that you're truly passionate about, that's definitely the highlight for me.
Tell us a little bit more about those pressures.
It's the pressure that you give upon yourself, the pressure that you might feel from your peers, the pressure you might feel from your family, and etc. But of course, I think being in such a high achieving school, as Mr. Mansueto said, most CIS students probably put most of the pressure on themselves to achieve certain goals. And from that, I think the one piece of advice I would be is, of course, be intentional. And with that, I mean, be aspirational, but at the same time also be realistic. So, of course, the list of schools that you apply to, it's like the 10 schools that kind of determine what your next step will be. Have a mix of things that you see would be either the reach, the match, or the safety, but within that, they should share a common set of criteria in which you are happy and excited to, pursue. For example, that might be a geography, it might be a subject, it might be the specific type of campus life that you're looking for. So just have kind of that set of criteria that you can apply to different types of schools, I think is really important.
What's it like to be a parent of a child going through this incredibly exhilarating process, but also one that can be pressuring and stressful?
It's a very exciting time, but yet it can be very scary and daunting, because this process is not within my control at all. I just see the process going through in front of my eyes. You're very close to it, but you can't do anything about it. I think being a parent is very different to being the student, because the student, as you said, is in the center of this process. Everybody's serving them. But as a parent, although you have a huge part in the process because you're actually going to have to send your child there and you have to pay for tuition and all that, but it's not your say, it's not your life, but you feel as though you have a huge role in this process. But at the end of the day, I think you don't need to feel that way, because from hindsight, with my first one having already gone through the process, it's actually a very, very rewarding process, a very touching process of seeing your child discover who they are, understanding what they want to do out of life, and telling you that basically, Mom, you can let go.
How do you best support your child going through, let's say, a selection process? They've got to come up with 10 universities out of the hundreds that exist all over the world.
For me, I think I started the conversation very early, as early as year 9, year 10, have open, candid conversations with them and start to encourage them to think about their strengths and their passion. And also be open-minded, and also be frank to them about certain restrictions like money and location. When they get to, I think, year 12 and year 13, help with the research, because they are overwhelmed. They've got a lot of things on their plate. They've got academics they have to deal with. They have to write the essays. And I think the least we can do is to help them with the research, because at the end of the day, the more information they have, the more comfortable they'll end up being in choosing the university or the subject they end up picking.
The future is rapidly changing, my goodness, right? AI, I don't need to list the various challenges that lie ahead of us all. If you were to fast forward 5 years and look back at CIS, what would you say we should redouble our attention to, or we should improve, or we should create that we don't already have? What from a growth mindset, what would you say?
We place a great deal of emphasis on schools that are deemed prestigious or well known. It's interesting that the prestige, the word itself, I think, is derived from the old French for deceit, which is quite something to think about. But before the college process, I didn't know there were schools like Deep Springs, Reed, Kenyon, and they are excellent schools. And so I would really hope that in the future, students are continually exposed to these alternative educational institutions that would suit them well, even though they may not be immediately familiar with it.
There's a lot of things going on culturally that maybe our students haven't been given the emotional language and haven't been coached in how to self-advocate and how to articulate themselves. And so we really want to infuse that in our university counseling program and coach and teach students and mentor students in how to be able to represent themselves well, to be their best self-advocates.
The entire process, I feel like it's more of an alignment of finding three things: what you're passionate about, what your strengths are, and what opportunities of growth there are. And it's finding the right channel or the right place for you to be able to flourish and thrive, to be able to accomplish the goals that you have further along in life. I think it's important to keep in mind that it's one, maybe an important step, but it is just a step on a much longer road that you'll have. And each person's journey is unique and it's not linear.
Thank you, dear participants. Clearly, the university counseling process is a journey of self-exploration, and we are deeply grateful to you for shedding such light on it. We are also thankful to all of our listeners, and we wish all of you the very best. Please take care.